Hi, my name is Heather Donnelly, and I'm your new reading supervisor here at the Jackson School District. Before I get started on my reading plans for this year, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about me. I'm originally from Maryland. I grew up in a small town where we were outnumbered by cows and horses. I grew up there my whole life, and then when I went to college, I went to a small school in Maryland called Mount St. Mary's. There I got my undergrad, my BS in elementary education. After graduation, I was hired by the Montgomery County Public School District, and I taught as a first grade teacher for 5 years. After my first year of teaching, I felt as though I wasn't really prepared to teach reading. So that's when I decided to go back to get my master's. I attained my master's from Johns Hopkins University in education with a specialization in reading. From there, I got my reading specialist certificate, and I moved to New Jersey to be with my now husband. Once I got here in New Jersey, I started out as a basic skills teacher. I started out as a first grade teacher, and then I was moved to basic skills. From basic skills, I was moved to a reading specialist, and now I'm your literacy supervisor. I've always wanted to work with other teachers to help them improve their reading instruction, and that's where I am today. I truly believe in order to increase achievement, we need to start with our educators. So that leads me to the literacy goals I've set forth for us this year. As you can see, this is my mission. The Johnson teachers will meet the needs of all students as we promote academic excellence through effective communication, differentiated instruction, and collaborative teaming in a safe, nurturing environment. So that's my overall goal. My first goal for this year at Johnson School is to develop routines and practices for the independent reading time at home and at school. Right now, we're not allowing our students enough time to practice their reading. That's the bottom line. And research shows the more students read, the better they will get, just like our successful athletes. The more they run, the more they practice, the better they get. And we've found that independent reading increases reading stamina, comprehension, and fluency. So here's some more research behind the importance of independent reading in the classroom. There's now considerable evidence from recent intervention studies that reading difficulties in most beginning readers may not be caused by biologically based cognitive deficits, but they're actually related to the opportunities provided for children learning to read. So basically that means they're not given enough time to actually practice reading. To ensure that our school makes the movement towards the independent inclusion into our language arts block, every month you will be required to attend one professional development meeting. At each meeting, we will address the elements that will be necessary for successful implementation. Some topics that will be covered over the course of the year include: what should your reading block look like? Using SRI, Lexile, Fontes and Pinnell data to find the just right books for your students. The mini lesson: what should engaged reading look like? Small group instruction, conferencing, readers' response journals, and assessing with a rubric. So how should independent reading practice be incorporated into your classroom? In your reading block, you should have a 10-minute mini lesson, which should correlate to the skill that's taught, that's from your curriculum mapping guide found in your Harcourt Teacher's Guide. So for example, this week, 3rd grade is teaching characters motivation. So your mini lesson should be based on that skill. that's being taught that week. You should have 30 minutes of independent reading, and within that 30 minutes, you should have one-on-one instruction or small group conferences. Then after your 30 minutes of independent reading, 10 minutes of reader response journal, and then a 5-minute wrap-up. As we move forward with our independent reading practice, we'll talk more about what each of these elements should look like. My second goal this year is to gain an understanding of our students' reading levels and provide text at their instructional and independent levels. And we already have in our district set up 2 assessment systems that help us find the just right levels for our students' books. That includes the Fountas and Pinnell benchmark leveling system and the Scholastic Reading Inventory. So I gathered some of the data put together for one third grade class performance on the SRI. The SRI yields a Lexile score, which is equated to a grade level equivalent performance. And you'll notice here we have 18% of our students in the advanced, 8 in the below basic in the red, 24 in the basic, 24% in the basic, and 51 in the proficient range for our SRI levels in the 3rd grade. And that all equates to a Lexile level, which will take us towards our independent reading book choices. In the next slide, you'll notice this is a class set of data showing the Fountas and Pinnell spring scores independent level, the first student being a level F all the way to a level O. Just notice how the Fountas and Pinnell, in one class, a Fountas and Pinnell can range from an F to an O, a big, big discrepancy. That brings me to my next slide. This is the reading correlation chart that you're going to become more and more familiar with as the year goes on, because once we find our students' independent reading level, we can equate it to a grade level appropriate expectation. So if we're at the beginning of the school year in grade 1, a student should be at a Fountas and Pinnell level C. If we look at this column here, the Lexile column, this tells us at grade 2, the beginning of grade 2, they should be at Lexile 300. This, of course, this correlation chart is useful to compare our students' performance to grade level expectations, and it's very useful in INRS discussions. My third goal is providing individualized reading instruction. It's obvious that not all of our students are working on the same instructional level. So it's our duty to provide differentiation in our reading block to meet the needs of our learners. And the different way we can address this is small group instruction in the K-2 realm and one-on-one conferencing in the 3 to 5 realm. Some research to support differentiation in the class. I got this quote and I found it really gave a lot of support about why we need to differentiate in the classroom. It says the consensus of a broad range of psychologists and brain researchers is that instruction should always be in advance of a child's current level of mastery. That is, teachers should teach within a child's zone of proximal development. If material is presented at or below the mastery level, there will be no growth. If it's presented well above the zone, children will become confused and frustrated. And that's why it's so important that we provide students with books that are either at their instructional or independent level. Because it's not going to frustrate them too much, and it's not going to be way too easy for them. My fourth goal is to work in a collaborative environment to move our instructional practices forward. I want you to be able to share your expertise and knowledge. When we collaborate, we're able to share our knowledge of successful teaching techniques. Ladies and gentlemen, the times they are changing in the education world, and we need to stick together. Gone are the days of the one-room school isolation. We need to talk to find out what works best. Although we have teachers in varying levels of their career, each person brings an important element to the table when developing instructional practices. There may be some of you that thinks they know everything about effective teaching. But with every year that passes, we know more and more about brains, how the brain works, and the best way to import knowledge. And a lot of that has come about through the past couple of years with MRI imaging, brain imaging. So we're learning a lot more about how kids learn. So how will we collaborate together? Collaboration will be during your weekly team meetings. At your meetings, you will discuss things like data collected regarding your students' reading levels, monitoring student progress, reading levels, and performance on your weekly tests, small group lessons and one-on-one conferencing, planning ahead, where do we go next, and what you found successful and unsuccessful in your classroom. This conversation is so, so important. In my early years, especially as a first-year teacher, this is what got me through my first and second year teaching, was a collaborative environment. My colleagues gave me so much advice and really steered me in the right direction and cultivated my instructional practices to be what they are today. So you must schedule a day to meet weekly, and I will drop in on meetings to see how things are going. But I just need to know what day you're meeting so that I can get there. I would also like you to have an agenda for your meetings, and I have enclosed an example agenda. It's pretty loose. You can type into it however you want, but I want to know what you're going to be talking about, or what comes up at your meetings that wasn't in the agenda. Another important part of meeting our goals this year, our literacy goals this year, is making sure that our educational support teachers are on the same page as us. It's, again, so important that we are collaborating with these professionals. Teachers who are educational support teachers will also use their time to differentiate their lessons with small group and one-on-one instructions. These professionals should be giving their targeted students a double dose of skills what they have in class. They are to choose reading materials at their students' instructional level. But again, remember, all lessons should be parallel to the curriculum instruction in the classroom, but at their instructional level. It's so important that the classroom teachers and the educational support teachers are working together. I told you about some professional development sessions that I would have monthly, but I'm also going to offer some optional professional development sessions for people who are just interested in learning more about independent reading. So I'm going to hold some optional professional development meetings before school, and some of the topics will be more small group and one-on-one instruction, making sense of your running records, here at when you're doing Fountas and Pinnell, using data to drive your instructions, finding popular mentor texts, and I actually wanted to start a book club, and the first book I chose was The Daily Five. Something important that I know you all are wondering about is observations. This year for tenured teachers, all teachers will be observed a minimum of 2 times over the course of the year. One will be announced and one will be unannounced. But I will be looking for those specific things, that the specific elements that we've talked about. Inclusion of independent reading, small group differentiation, students picking the just right book. Non-tenured teachers. Non-tenured teachers will be observed at least 4 times during the course of the year. Again, I'll be looking for some of the same elements. And finally, non-tenured teachers who have been assigned their mentor teachers will report to their mentor teachers on a bi-weekly basis. And the mentor teachers, it's your duty to sort of take account of how many hours you've been interacting with your mentee. So you're wondering what I want to see when I come to observe. I want to see independent reading incorporated into your schedule, differentiations, students picking the just right books, lesson plans reflecting the Common Core state standards. I think that will be a little bit obvious for me, but I'll be able to tell from your lesson plans how they connect because I've read every page of that Common Core standards. I would also like to see collaboration with your colleagues. This will be seen mostly at your team meetings. I want to see increased reading levels of students. If our students are not moving, then we need to sit down and talk about what we can do to help those students make that movement happen. And monitor data of weekly reading lesson tests. In closing, I want you to understand that all of these goals are tied to increasing student achievement. And I believe the best way to increase student achievement is to provide the best instruction available. If you have any suggestions on how we can meet our goals better, please let me know. You can look at my last name, Donnelly, in the system and shoot me some emails and just see me in the hallways. I'm happy to hear any suggestions you have. I've also included some research, journal articles, and titles to refer to if you want more information on our reading goals this year, including differentiation, independent reading, and collaboration. So I have some of those here for you, so you can take a look as you're leaving. I've also marked the pages where you can find the most pertinent information, I believe, for pertaining to our goals this year. Thank you for coming. You've been a great audience.